Last night, the UN humanitarian chief, Tom Fletcher, pleaded with his colleagues on the Security Council not to sit idly by.
Previous reviews of the UN's conduct in cases of large-scale violations pointed to our collective failure to speak to the scale of violations while they were committed. This degradation of international law is corrosive and infectious. It is undermining decades of progress on rules to protect civilians.
Both Kilkenny and Wexford will wear shorts, but will change if asked at this weekend's Leinster Senior Camogie final. A statement from both teams says they will wear skirts if told to, but will play under protest. As part of the protest, the teams do not consent to photography or video at the match if it's played in skirts. The players have asked the media and the Leinster Council to respect their protest if the rule is enforced. That's it for now. We'll have news again in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Sun's out, tons out. Get the gals back together with Ryanair's low-fare flights to Agadir, Gran Canaria or Malta.
Showers will die out this evening and early tonight, leaving clear skies. A few mist and fog patches will form in a light and variable breeze. Lowest temperatures 5 to 11 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.
This is News Talk.
Good evening and welcome along to Wednesday night's Off the Ball. It's Eoin here with you until 10 o'clock this evening. Busy show coming your way over the next 3 hours. So from 7:30, we're going to be speaking to Lawrence Donegan, previewing the USPGA Championship at Quail Hollow. From 8 o'clock, we've got Wednesday Night Rugby with Jerry Thornley. Lots of URC chat until the breaking news came in a little earlier on that the men's Rugby Sevens programme is being abandoned by the IRFU. And then on the football show after 9 o'clock, we've got Megan Campbell coming your way, we've got John Giles coming your way, and we've got poet Mike Garry in studio as well. Our number is 0879 180 180 if you want to drop us a WhatsApp. You can get in touch on social media as well. At Off the Ball is our handle. Cameron Hill will be delivering your news round as ever on a Wednesday. How are you doing, Cameron?
Good evening, Eoin.
And Kathleen McNamee, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Even though you've gone nowhere, but I haven't been in studio with you for ages.
No, I know. We used to do every morning together. It's very nice to be here of an evening with you, Eoin.
Yeah,
He doesn't acknowledge people that don't come in the evening.
That's it. If you're not in the studio, I don't speak to you. That is my pretty hard policy on it. You did come wandering across the office a little earlier on as we had poet Mike Garry in studio. So we had Mike Garry in last September, I think it was. It was at the start of the Premier League season. He's a Mancunian poet of Irish heritage. He was born in Ireland and he's absolutely brilliant. And we got a huge reaction to his piece in here last year. There were even teachers getting in touch asking for his poetry that he recited on air so that they could work with their English classes on the poems that he had recited. So that was the sort of reaction we got. And then when he got back in touch saying, I'm playing a few more gigs around Dublin in May, can I come back in? I was like, of course, anything, Mike. And he was like, anything? Really? Can I bring my string quartet in with me? And I was like, of course you can. I mean, the technical aspects, we can figure that out on the day. No problem. It's easy to get a string quartet in the studio and just do it. He shows up today with the string quartet, and then I basically landed Emma and Mick in it. They had to react to this on the fly. Furniture was moved to the other side of the room to fit all the instruments in, and I think Emma and Mick did an absolutely phenomenal job. Mike did a great job. His string quartet did a great job. Some of it's on our social media channels already. It's going to be played out in full after 9 o'clock on the football show. But you witnessed some of the chaos from the other side of the glass.
I did, and I have to say full credit to Emma and Mick for what they did. I've seen this studio turned into lots of weird and wonderful things, but I think that was the most weird and the most wonderful. Yeah, I came back into the office, hadn't been in all morning, and I just saw all these instruments like lying outside the door and like the cases lying outside the door. And I was like, what's going on? There's no... Like normally you'd see something like that outside the News Talk studios rather than the OTB ones. So I just wandered over to see what was happening, and as you said, there was a full string quartet playing, and Mike was reciting his poetry, and it was just an incredible thing to experience and not something you often see in this studio. So everyone is 100% in for a treat, and if you do want to get that little taster of it, definitely look at the OTB socials because it was brilliant.
Yeah, hopefully the first of many.
Yeah.
I mean, bring your band into OTB Studios if you're
Look,
if
it's
you're a
something
guest.
we've talked about doing for so long as well, and we've always thought we couldn't because of our studio capabilities. But Mick and Emma now have just proven that we can. So every band that's out there that wants to come in, please do get in touch.
Emma's just shaking her head violently out there. Please do not put me under that sort of pressure ever again.
You should be advocating against this, though. And you learned the lesson that so many Irish backpackers have learned over the years, that when you say, yeah, you can stay at mine when you come over, that offer will be taken up upon.
Yeah.
So,
Always say yes, basically.
Yeah.
I should say, since we're at the top of the show here, just to give Mike and the Cassia String Quartet a bit of a plug, they are playing in Pearse Street Library tonight, but if you're in Dublin, they will be back on Monday night playing Workman's, and I believe tickets are still available. If you're in Cork, don't fear, they're playing Crane Lane tomorrow. They're going out to Ballydehob the following night. And anyone in and around Balahi, they're playing the Seamus Heaney home place this weekend as well. So Mike Gary and the Cassia String Quartet coming up after 9 o'clock on the show. We don't always get into the news round at the very top, but I think it's been a pretty busy day of news. And the news round is with UPMC Sports Surgery Clinic. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action. And a few competitors for your top story this evening, Cameron.
Yeah, but as you alluded to at the top there, Eoin, the IRFU has confirmed today that it will discontinue the men's sevens programme from next season onwards. The union released a statement this evening saying the decision has been made to ensure long-term financial sustainability for Irish rugby. Now, World Rugby have reduced the World Series to an 8-team tournament ahead of next year, so Ireland were one of 4 teams getting the axe and dropping down to the second tier as a result. The women's sevens programme, incidentally, which is a key development channel for the 15 senior team, will be retained. And former Ireland Sevens captain Billy Darvidas was speaking today at the Sport Ireland campus.
What happened in the last month, it'd be like if Six Nations announced the week before the last game that there's now a Division 2, and if you're not in the top 3, you're into the Division 2. So it's just been a bit of a mess, and in turn the IRFU have been kind of sitting on their hands with it and decided, and especially now because the men's are relegated, they're not even in Division 2, they're now out of it, and there's, by all accounts, on Monday the lads are getting told that there's no programme next year. So men's sevens rugby is gone next year as far as I'm aware. So lads are looking for jobs, trying to sort things. I think it's also the World Rugby thing. So you could be with sevens in World Sevens, you could be professional one year, drop the next year, then professional the next year, and it's an absolute mess. And there's big uproar across all the players' associations. But yeah, it also it creates a lot of controversy then around Olympic sports. It doesn't create a good product for the Olympics. It's unbelievably deflating and disappointing, and it's just been infuriating watching it, because when there was 10 players retired last year after Paris and not one player was replaced, so they only had 13, 14 lads over the whole squad this year. It didn't bring in one, so you kind of see the cracks, and they weren't putting in the same amount of funding. Coaches and performance staff started to leave. World Rugby had the whole thing up in the air, so it was coming for a long time, and so we spent kind of around January, February time, a lot of us in the background, the senior guys like Harry McNulty and myself would have been pushing. I would have got on to Peter Schreier and the OFI to see what we could do, and I think it was probably too far gone. Decisions were made by that stage, so I think I've come to terms with it. I think the lads have come to terms with it. It's now, okay, I need to find a job for next year, because a lot of them are in their kind of mid to late 20s, so need to start moving. And some of them have, in fairness to them. I suppose I've been joking. I was only saying it last night. We're like the Jamaican bobsleigh team from years ago. That like we were the flash in the pan, came on the scene for 4 or 5 years, and then it's now gone.
Yeah, really strong stuff. Cameron, I know you'd follow sevens closer than most. Can you just explain in a bit more depth what exactly has happened here? Like, is it the IRFU reacting to a poor decision for sevens from World Rugby, or is all the responsibility on the IRFU for making this decision?
Well, ostensibly it's the former. So World Rugby announced recently, as Jared has alluded to there, pretty much towards the end of this year's World Series, that they were going to an 8-team tournament. So previously it had been the top 12 teams in the world. That's going down to 8. So on the men's side, Kenya, Uruguay, Ireland and the USA are gone, with Ireland, Brazil, China and Spain gone from the women's. So both teams finished 11th, which means they're below the threshold and are put into this new 6-team second tier. So the top 4 teams from that would qualify for a 12-team World Championship at the end of the year. But I read Rory O'Connor had a really good piece in this in his newsletter, and it's up on the Irish Independent website, that apparently, I didn't know this, World Rugby lost 25 million euro in the Sevens programme last year. So it seemed like this has been more of a financial decision than a competitive one. But I'd heard as far back as last year that the Sevens programme, from an Irish perspective, was under threat. There's certainly been a lot of retirements of some of the big players, or players going overseas. So Harry McNulty retired at the end of the Olympics. This, by all accounts, wasn't related to the Sevens programme being wound up, but it seems like this has been coming for quite some time. There had been murmurings, and certainly from what some of the players have been saying and from what Dard has said, there was something in the water about this for quite some time, but it was confirmed basically today.
Yeah, it certainly seems that they've had a great sense that this was coming down the tracks. In the IRFU press release earlier on, they did mention the financial results last November, which showed an €18 million deficit for the 2023-24 season. So they mention that deficit and trying to secure a sustainable financial future. Like, I think if it wasn't such a massive financial burden as they seem to be hinting at here, it does feel a little bit complacent to not be trying to push the boat out with Sevens rugby, given what we've seen with the women's game in particular and how they're keeping that because they know that the women's team needs those players. I mean, even one or two players coming off the 7 system into the 15 system, if that were to benefit the 15s team, you would think in the men's side of things it would be worth keeping going as well?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And especially because of the conversations that we constantly have in this country about where our 15s players are coming from, and that we have very specific feeder schools, that we have very specific academies, aka Leinster, that end up developing the majority of players. Like, having another avenue that players can come through and another avenue that is developing different skills as well is really important. And it does seem like a reactionary decision from the IRFU based off what the World Rugby is saying, and I assume the fact that both sides are kind of putting it on the financial constraints. It's harder to argue with that when there is that evidence there in black and white. But I suppose the question there is, well, is there another way to look at it? Is there another way to do it that doesn't involve, you know, as much travel that's involved with the tournaments, because they are quite far flung? Is there other ways of looking at how the development program is done? It just seems to be, we're just going to pull the plug, or else we're just going to make it really difficult on the World Rugby side for people to keep competing.
Now, the Ireland Sevens released a statement on their Instagram account earlier on, and one of the top comments on it is from Harry McNulty, who says, "Why was this not shared to the main Irish Rugby page? Trying to hide this information?" he asks. And then Greg O'Shea commented on that post as well, saying, "Awful decision. After all the good work done over so many years to form another pathway for young players to represent our country. Last year, the men's team finished 2nd in the World Series and 6th in the Olympics. In the last few years, we've had 2 World Cup top try scorers and a World Player of the Year. Many 15 stars have come through the Sevens pathway, including one player selected for the upcoming Leinster, which is, of course, Hugo Keenan. This is a very disappointing decision and crushing the dreams of future players." So we will hopefully speak to a player or two on the show, on one of our shows anyway, either here and Off the Ball Breakfast at some point over the next couple of days. Cameron, where do you want to go next?
Well, we'll go to news from the FAI today. So there is an Ireland squad that we will get to in a second, but just wanted to mention that Hannah Dingley is set to leave her role as the FAI's head of women's and girls football after just 12 months there. So the former Forest Green men's manager joined the association last May to take up the role vacated by Eileen Gleeson. She became head coach of the women's senior team, of course. Multiple outlets reporting that Dingley is set to depart, with confirmation expected from the association later this week.
What's going on here?
It's a strange one. I mean, we saw whenever she released her action plan, I use action as a light enough word because there wasn't a lot of action in the plan, that there was a very, very mellow response to it. There was no real plan set out. There was no real places to go. There was no outline as to what they were actually going to do. I mean, I think the question that I've heard asked from most people today is what has been the last year that Hannah Dingley has been in there. Now, there is the ghost of Eileen Gleeson there, and a suggestion in some of the reports that she could be in line to return, because of course whenever she, like, as if people don't remember, whenever Eileen took up the role of the head coach of the women's national team, the FAI changed the contract for the head of women and girls football, or there was reports that they had changed the contract from a permanent contract to a fixed term contract, and that had led to issues with actually attracting people to the role. And like, Eileen Gleeson was asked about it constantly during her tenure. Like, was the reasoning for that you were going to go back into that once you finish coaching? And then Mark Canham and David Carell have both been asked consistently since Eileen left the role after the Wales game, what is she doing? Like, she's still an FAI employee, but what is she doing within the association? So there's some rumblings around the place. There's some questions being asked. Is this going to be her return to FAI, return to public forum, which would be an interesting one, especially if it does come ahead of those really important games for the women's national team at the end of May and start of June, because you imagine all the questions that are going to be asked is going to be about what's going on with this role rather than about the team and the performance. So at the moment, there's no word as to where Hannah Dingley is going. There has been no links to any other roles. There was no kind of mention in the run-up to this either that people were unhappy with her performance within the FAI. Obviously outside, there was a bit of concern that there hadn't been all that much done. But again...
Is there a sense of where she's going to go next?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Not at all.
Right.
And I don't know, is this something that is a feed on from Mark Canham leaving? Like, was he part of the reason why she came in the first place? Because obviously he was setting out the 12-year plan for the FAI. She was looking after the specific side of women and girls football. And now those two people who are supposed to lead those two plans are now gone. It just leaves a lot of questions about where is the FAI headed at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, a couple of big roles now that need to be filled in the coming months as opposed to just one. Speaking of, big moments for the FAI, we're actually going to do a special on this show tomorrow evening. We were doing the aligned calendar. We were talking about summer football last week with Ger McDermott of the FAI. We got such a huge reaction to that on the football show last Thursday night that what we're actually going to do is we're going to do a phone-in special on grassroots and summer football tomorrow night on Off the Ball. But you can WhatsApp us 0879 180 180 with your thoughts, with your voice notes. They would be great. And if you're up for taking a call from us, we'll do it on the football show after 9 o'clock tomorrow. But we feel that there's such a flood of opinion out there on both sides of this argument around the aligned calendar and around summer football that we feel it's worthwhile to do this tomorrow evening. So myself and Nathan are going to give that a crack. Basically, the week after Joe Duffy has hung up his mic, we're saying we can do live phone-in radio as well. Exactly. This is me and Nathan.
Between yourself and Nathan, who's the favourite for the role?
We are entering as a team.
Oh, as a team, okay.
I haven't seen him in a couple of days. I hope he hasn't snuck off behind my back to apply without me.
Nathan. He does have a bit of a reputation when it comes to the quiz.
He did have something at 12 today that he wouldn't discuss.
Yeah. Now, he is not here to defend himself, and that is only right and just because he does not have a leg to stand on these allegations. Right. We do have news from the men's side of things as well. There was a men's team squad announcement today.
Yeah, 4 players called up to the Republic of Ireland senior men's squad for the first time today. Among them, Shamrock Rovers defender Josh Honohan, John Joe Patrick Finn, who's plying his trade at Stade Reims at the moment. Leyton Orient goalkeeper Josh Keeley and Killian Phillips of Crystal Palace are the other players drafted in for the friendlies against Senegal and Luxembourg next month. Seamus Coleman and Festi Eboseli are among the players to return, having missed the games against Bulgaria in March. Coleman's contract at Goodison Park expires at the end of June, and he's yet to reveal what he'll do next. Hallgrimsson explained why he wants the veteran fullback in his squad.
Well, his quality is, I don't think nobody's questioning his quality as a player, but he gives a lot on other sides as well. So he's a big leader, helping the players. There's a few young players now coming in, so he can assist them as well. But he gives, on many layers, he gives us a lot.
Look, we'll have plenty of time to discuss this squad and everything else, all the storylines, when we get into the build-up of those 2 fixtures. But we should actually just skip on to Gaelic Games, Cameron, because another of the huge stories today is regarding Scourtgate.
Yeah, the Leinster Camogie finals will go ahead this Saturday, but the players involved said they will play under protest. So the Kilkenny and Wexford squads, who feature in the senior final, along with the intermediate finalists Carlow and Laois, will tog out in shorts. In a joint statement released this evening, the panels have said, "We do not consent to any photography or video of us taken of the match themselves should we be forced to wear skirts." So their position is they will play the final if they're told to change into skirts, but they are playing under protest. We call on the Leinster Council, they say, to ensure this is enforced, and we ask both the media and supporters to respect our decision. Now, delegates are due to vote on the controversial skirts rule at Camogie Association's Special Congress next Thursday. CEO of the Gaelic Players Association, Tom Parsons, was speaking to our own Oisin Coyne today. He believes the players' rights need to be prioritised when members vote on the issue.
Well, look, this is a player welfare issue, and the GPA issued a report to say that, okay, preference is for choice, but also there's a player welfare issue here, and we reference policy in Sport Ireland and policy in Europe, and we engage the European Athletes Association, and when it comes to player welfare, that needs to be, athletes have rights. So look, I think we have to trust the delegates will make the right decision. I hope that they read the GPA report in terms of what is the policy saying, and choice is just a non-negotiable for a modern organisation. I think everybody needs to look at and consult with players. I haven't heard one dissenting voice from a player that says they don't want choice, and that choice might be a skirt or it might be a short, but I think we really need to respect the choice of players.
Much like the players last weekend and the weekend beforehand, you just feel very sorry for them that they're in this position, this unenviable situation like Kilkenny and Wexford are in, where they're trying to find compromises because they're elite athletes who just want to go out and play. This is an interesting one, the not consenting to photographs or videos. That's a bit of a curveball that I didn't see coming.
I know, and I don't know how I feel about it. I understand why they're doing it, but also it's not like anyone is going to take any major hit by this. I understand that they don't want to be seen wearing the skirts. I understand it from that perspective. But if you're looking at trying to make an impact on, say, the coverage of the game, you know, or something like that, I don't think this is going to be the thing that does it. And we have seen this before with previous protests where players refused to speak to the media, which at the time I also thought wasn't a great idea, because you need to get your cause out there and speak to them. And we've seen them do that brilliantly over the last couple of weeks in terms of, you know, people like Aisling Maher and Eve Rocket. They've been so vocal and basically had their faces across every platform talking about this issue, so that it has stretched outside of a sporting context. It's now, you know, it's being reported in The Guardian because people are interested in what's going on. So I'm not entirely sure what the aim is to prove with the no videos, no photos from the game. I do really wish that they would just not play the game and just walk off the pitch. And I totally understand all the reasons why you obviously want to, you know, you're an elite athlete, you want to get to these finals, you want to play them, you don't want to have put all that training to any sort of waste. But I do think it would just add the momentum, even if, like we saw last week with pulling the final last minute, even if that did happen again, it's just another chip away at the cause of whatever it is the Camogie Association and the delegates have about maintaining this really archaic rule that they must play in skirts. But again, that's also not to pass judgment, because I can't imagine the absolute stress that there has been on the heads of these women over the last couple of weeks. I don't think it's an enviable position that anyone would want to be in.
So Congress is next Thursday, so tomorrow week. What happens if skirts aren't, or the move isn't actually rubber stamped and things stay the same?
It's a possibility. It's a strong possibility.
But we had this exact same argument last year when it was brought to Congress. It wasn't the same sort of media storm, I think, that it has been the last couple of weeks, but it was the exact same discussion. The players made themselves very clearly heard, and it still didn't pass. And I don't think have been enough discussions around that in terms of, okay, yes, everyone publicly, outwardly is very much in favour of allowing people to wear skirts or shorts, whichever they want. But like, who's digging down into the counties, into who are the delegates that are going to be sent? Where are the delegates coming out and saying, yeah, I'm going to the special Congress next week and I'm going to vote?
Yeah, obviously, nobody really in the association, and very few of the powers that be, come out looking good from this. But even if there is change next week, you'd have to ask yourself the question, why all of a sudden is there change? Why are they moved to vote for choice this year and not for choice last year, if change is actually ushered through next week? Because I presume many of the delegates are the very same people. I think maybe a public kind of a very negative public moment for the Camogie Association is probably what will have changed a lot of people's minds come next week. But then again, maybe there won't be any change, and we're sitting here tomorrow week with an even more extraordinary story than the one we've been dealing with over the last.
You need an October surprise or something to keep the momentum up, right? Which is why it's so interesting. Like that statement, as you were saying, like if the game is played and they play in squirts and there's a media blackout, like suddenly there's just a vote next Thursday all of a sudden. Like we will forget about everything, the momentum will be gone. And to be honest, like Sarah O'Donovan's been saying, has been voicing her views and fears that it won't get through. I think that all you needed to know really for this piece was when Aisling Maher had come off the ball on Sunday, and the Camogie Association's response the next day was, well, we're looking at different technologies to make the score more comfortable, which to me felt like very much if you went into a shop and you wanted a refund and they said, well, we'll give you 10% off your next purchase. Like, it's not really a solution. It's kind of, it's
just
nothing.
let them have the choice.
Yeah.
What would happen though if they just played the game? Got someone else to referee it. If the referees refused to play the game in the shorts, yes, okay, it wouldn't go down as, you know, counting in the history books potentially, but
yeah,
it'd be a pretty massive statement.
I saw it mentioned with regards to Cork and Waterford last week. All right, and maybe there's a part as well where they're like, you don't want to be, if they're made to replay the game in a few weeks' time, then, you know, you've either had this very high moment, this very low moment, you've exposed all your tactics on the field,
That's
and then you got to
true,
do it all again. But yeah, no, I'd seen that being mentioned. It would add to the drama for sure if they went ahead and did that. We do have a bit of action tonight and over the course of the next few days as well, Cameron. Just a couple of more Gaelic game stories to finish up on.
Yeah, well, we'll go through the Munster hurling title, the final tonight, because Tipperary have the chance to defend that title against Clare. That's throwing in the next few minutes, in fact, at the Gaelic grounds at 7:35. There are a pair of Leinster semi-finals down for decision tonight. So the latest score between Galway and Dublin is Dublin 2-12, Galway 12 points. Laois go up against Kilkenny in Port in the next few minutes. That throws in at 7:30. And we have the times and venues for the first round of group games in this year's All-Ireland Football Championship. So 4 games down for decision on Saturday week. Meath will host Cork and Navan for a 3 o'clock throw-in. Newbridge is the venue for newly minted Leinster champions Louth against Monaghan. Then it's a 5 o'clock start on that day for Armagh against Derry at the Athletic Grounds, and Ulster champions Donegal face their provincial rivals Tyrone in Ballybuffet from 7 to round off that day's action.
All right, Cameron, thank you for tonight's news round. Kathleen, thank you for popping in. We will be speaking to Lawrence Donegan after the break, previewing the USPGA Quail Hollow. After 8 o'clock, we've got Jerry Thornley, and then, as I mentioned, Mike Gary, Megan Campbell, John Giles, and a packed football show after 9 o'clock. Before all that, it's time for the Cash Machine.
News Talk's Cash Machine.
Now, there's another huge amount to be won in the Cash Machine this Friday. The number you need to know is 156.